Hey guys, this is a English build order video. I wanted to kind of expand on some of the civs I play and kind of get build orders for different civs and just get a, in general, better feel for playing different civs to be able to play a little bit more competitively. That being said, this is my variation, or I guess my English feudal all-in opener with the council hall. Um, Pretty much everyone has a similar style of this, I believe. Um, but a lot of people pull off of their gold completely and dedicate to just only wood units and wood and food villagers to only make longbows and spears. I like changing this a little bit. I do a 9-2 opener, which I think is just in general more efficient and more streamlined for basically most builds than doing like an 8-3 kind of a build. So we're gonna do a 9-2 opener, and then we're just gonna leave one villager on gold. A lot of my builds, I usually leave two villagers on gold, but since English longbows are so expensive, and especially with the council hall being a double archery range, it's really hard to keep that production on par with another build if I sacrifice more than one villager on gold. And so this one villager on gold does basically pay for itself around the 5.5 minute mark. So there's a small window where another build will kind of be ahead of your build if you face another council hall all in. But as long as you don't take an unfavorable fight there, you will scale better than they will into the late game. And then you also have kind of an option of getting certain techs earlier if you want to, or against a different opponent. You don't have to do as hard of a switch on your eco to say rush rams versus like in a standard build, because you're going to have a little bit of gold kind of banked up. And so it gives you a little bit of flexibility. You can switch to some man at arms if you need to, if you want to do kind of longbows mixed with man at arms. So it gives you some leeway in terms of like your play style. So it's interesting. I do think it has potential just in general. The feudal council hall all-in is pretty strong, but it's definitely very matchup dependent. Just because the wood investment for the longbows is so expensive, it is kind of tough to get your blacksmith and your rams out in time versus a traditional kind of a build. Just because your double council hall is it just chews up a lot of food, as well as that you're doing a farm transition at the same time, and that eats up a bunch of food, even though it is half off. But yeah, it's interesting. I can't really comment too much on what matchups I think it's really good in yet, because I've been playing it a bit, but not a lot, and I haven't gotten a really good feel of it. But I do kind of like it against Abbasids when they go TC boom. Against Roos in some scenarios when the TC boom, and again in some fast castle civs, I do feel like it's got some potential. It can be pretty difficult though to switch into that ram and not affect your military count too much at the same time. So it's something that requires a little bit of balancing and stuff. And I guess that just comes with play and experience. So I can't comment too much on that, but the build is basically an opener on the gold. The first 6 villagers start collecting sheep. One of those villagers will go build a house and the mining camp. Your first rally vill goes onto gold. There's a little bit of a micro there with the villager on gold. When he mines, your mining camp won't be done in time for him to return, so you kind of have to switch out with the building villager. But then besides that, you're rallying up to 10 on food, and then you're going to build your landmark with 4 villagers from food, and then you're going to just be rallying onto wood basically for the rest of the game. You're just going to pull villagers here and there onto wood or onto food as needed, onto farms. If you have to make a tech switch into gold and stuff for blacksmith, you will do that. But this is just kind of to show kind of a 10-minute benchmark that you can hit 40 units at 10 minutes here, which is what an all-in will kind of do without the gold investment. And this is kind of where that investment into gold kind of helps equalize your unit numbers by the 10-minute mark. And I guess the only other little detail is your villagers, one of your 2 gold villagers at 190 wood or gold will pull onto wood. If it's 190 or 200, it's not a big deal, but it's something that you definitely want to keep tabs on. So, anywho, we will do the build order here so you guys can kind of see it in action. And yeah, I'm not sure how much I'm going to be playing it on ranked. I've been playing it a bit, but the new patch is coming out tomorrow, and there's going to be some changes to Mongols, which are pretty exciting for my playstyle at least. So we should be able to hit a different Mangudai build order with that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm digressing a lot. We'll just do this English build and kind of focus on that. Okay, we do get an early sheep out here, which is nice. When that happens, just rally that sheep back to your base. That early sheep there is actually a pretty big deal because it makes your timings a lot easier to deal with. In terms of when your scout comes back, because if he's coming back around the 150 mark, sometimes a villager will go idle here and there. You have to pay attention to this villager. You see he's at 9, and mining camp isn't built yet, so we're going to switch it out with this villager. This villager, I like to select the villager that's building and send them over once the other villager heads back. That way they have a little bit of a difference in terms of their resource drop-off times. And that just makes the 190 drop-off, when that happens, being able to differentiate between the two vills, which one is going to do the drop-off, a little bit easier, in my opinion. I also control group 4 villagers early on at the very beginning, just because it's easier at the very beginning, in my opinion, to do so, and that just makes it so when we do age up, it's a pretty easy deal. So we're at 140 gold. We're still pretty far from where we need to be. We only got 1 sheep on this whole side, so maybe I missed a sheep. Definitely when I play, I'm a little bit more attentive to my sheep and like what he's looking at. So maybe we missed some sheep, but maybe it's just bad RNG, which sometimes happens in games. But we have 2 sheep, which is enough for this kind of early phase of the game, so we'll be alright. We will rally up another villager here. We're at 180 gold now. So now I like to check which villager is going to be my 190 villager, and it's the villager I selected here. So he drops off 190. I'm going to queue him onto wood now. Haven't found any sheep here. A little bit unattentive here. With our scout, keep tabs on that. We have this villager chopping from our gold, and now we're going to rally onto another straggler tree here. We will have to queue another villager. I don't like that we have a villager that has 3, or we're 3 food short of a click up here. So I will force drop off there, and then I get 2 groups on my council hall. So I shift queue all of my villagers back onto food here on the council hall. And my scout on his return trip will drop off at the mining camp here. You don't want to come all the way back to your TC, it's kind of wasted time. There is a sheep here I missed. Alright, so we are going to come all the way through. But I get 1 villager on control group 4, another one on control group 2 here, and that's because I have to build a barracks at a certain time, and I have to build a house at a certain time. So usually what I'm doing is the barracks is at 3:30. I'm starting to build that, and the barracks and the house I'm starting to build at the 3:45 mark. I do split 3 villagers onto 1 tree, and then I start rallying everyone else onto here. It kind of just helps for like the macro involved for the trees chopping. And we did a little bit over collect here. That's okay. Like we passed our timer there, which I like to like keep pretty consistent with. That's okay. So we're going to reshift all of this over here. Queue up over here, and we'll shift our rally points over here. Looks like he's got a back gold. That's kind of, I mean, it's against the Ruse player, so you probably wouldn't do this strat against the Ruse player, but it's just the AI, so we're not too worried about it. Sometimes the shift queue doesn't work on the food here because of the like the sheep that they're queued on doesn't like rally properly, or like it's gone, so they no longer rally to it because it's a gone sheep. So I dropped this wood camp a little bit early because it's pretty important because you're gonna get your broad axe upgrade at like the 345 mark. So as you can see that we just got this. I do like to drop a campfire here. And so the idea is you're going to deny gold, you're going to deny food, and you're going to try to deny wood the best you can. And these campfires are going to really help be able to do that. It is relatively difficult to keep all of this like in tabs, I guess, or like paying attention to all of this because it is it's really micro intensive when you're playing versus an actual player to like pay attention to all of this at the same time. Kind of bad that we might get housed here. And that's kind of what can happen. Your guys will get pulled away, and then as long as you're not housed before a villager comes in, it's not a big deal. But yeah, you can get pulled away before you're like actually able to get a kill in and things like that. So those little details definitely add up and can like lead to unit deaths that you really don't want. You do want to just fall back and just harass. And this scout is really good for dropping these campfires in kind of various spots. And then as your housing gets close, around 5 villagers, I do like to get another house up. And it kind of helps with the timing for everything to work out there. And yeah, so that's pretty much it in terms of the build. From here, you know, it kind of depends. Like if you think you need to drop a blacksmith, you would skip a couple longbows. If you think like after you shut this down, you'd be rallying there, and you can move this army around the side over here and harass his wood line and kind of deny wood. But it's all kind of a bit of a dance because you really gotta like do it really nicely here. And now another thing here is you see we start to idle villagers over here on our sheep, and because there's one more body left over, and sometimes that it gets like clogged up, and it gets kind of shitty to like to handle it properly. And once I have 15 villagers on wood, I begin to look into producing farms and going up to like 14-15 villagers on food. But one big thing is it kind of depends on what your opponent is doing. If you're playing like say versus the same another English player doing a feudal all in, you're just gonna want to do a like heavy onto wood first, like go up to your 15 on wood. But if you're playing against a French player who decides to get like knights and stuff out, if you actually start pulling villagers around 10 villagers on wood and start dropping early farms, you will actually be able to deal with a early like the early knights and stuff with not much problems. And again, yeah, so you can kind of see like even like just against the AI right now, I'm kind of struggling in terms of keeping all my macro in line here, and it definitely happens. But part of it is just familiarity with the civ. The more familiar you get, the easier it does get. But yeah, not a big deal. So we're okay with kind of playing a little bit shitty here. I want to I got 8 here. So these villagers that are on berries, I'm happy that I got these villagers on berries. Any additional villagers, I will probably take a secondary group of farms. So I'll grab like this villager and like go over here and do this. And we are down to the last bit of units here. And we probably have idled a little bit more than I would have liked, but again, not a big deal. There's definitely benchmarks I've hit where I've hit the full 40 unit mark at the 10-minute mark. So that's just something that kind of happens the cleaner you play, but you're definitely close to that mark every time. So I didn't really want to gauge the AI here just because we do want to kind of show you like a decent benchmark here at the 10-minute mark, and just kind of what you can kind of actually do with your units here in this regard. Okay, so it's 10-minute mark. We're gonna surrender real quick, and we're gonna drop another farm here. So you can see our farms aren't the best right now. I mean, we could invest into more to drop more farms a little bit sooner. And it's kind of like a fine line in terms of when you can drop more farms. But the early eco tech I feel like helps a lot in kind of giving you like that one villager you're sacrificing in terms of production early gets kind of taken care of pretty quick because of that eco tech. You have your gold eco tech, and if you wanted to, you wouldn't have spent that on those eco techs. You could have spent it on a blacksmith tech. So we're sitting at 37 units right now at the 10-minute mark. A lot of people are usually hitting like 40-ish units at the 10-minute mark without investing into gold or eco grade upgrades. But here you can see we've got 37. So we're pretty close to where we want to be. You can hit a little bit higher with a little bit cleaner macro. Yeah, so the big idea though is at this point, we've got 14 on food. We should be 15 because one more villager is heading over to build this next farm. So we got 15 on food and 17 on wood. So we're just sitting in a pretty good spot. Now the idea is just slowly kind of get these two full farms fully fleshed out to 16 units. And then it's kind of depending on the game state, right? You can keep cranking out units. You can go into castle behind this. But the big idea is just, this is just kind of like hitting the same mass that a feudal English feudal council hall in kind of does, but at the same time, you're not neglecting eco upgrades, and you do have some flexibility with your gold collected post age up to go man at arms if you want to get like some sort of cheeky raid, or you need something to like kind of hold there, or instead of getting your eco tech, you drop a blacksmith and you rush rams, something like that. So there's some flexibility in the build in that regard. That I kind of like more than just completely foregoing all of your gold investment after your 8-3 your 8-3 build. So I do prefer the 9-2, and leaving just one villager onto gold here is kind of the idea behind this build order. So yeah. I guess one thing I always usually do too with the builds is to look at my economy count at the 10-minute mark and kind of give like a benchmark in terms of like how much resources I got. And the English feudal all-in is actually pretty rough. You're pretty poor because of it. So you're only hitting 6,500 resources with this feudal all-in play at the 10-minute mark, which is really it really is super poor. I mean, I guess you can make arguments for sustainability and like unit strength, but you only have 6,500 resources produced, which like compared to the Mongols, like my feudal trade all in with the Keshiks and stuff like that, it's like hitting almost 8,000 resources. So you're almost hitting 1,500, 1,000, 1,500 resources more by the 10-minute mark. Which is pretty crazy that there's that much of a difference in terms of eco upgrades, right? And part of it is because you're foregoing eco techs early, like the wheelbarrow. You're not leaning into like second TC and things like that. So it's definitely a very all-in strat, and that's kind of where its big weakness is at, is because you're pretty poor. It's probably one of the weaker openings I've done in terms of eco strength. I mean, your army is pretty strong. It's 40 units by the 10-minute mark, but this army is really strong at the 10-minute mark in this big mass, right? But if you, during your attacks, let's say you take them off a gold, and we saw the AI pull off onto this wood, and it's usually what a lot of players do. So you pull off like your first group of 6 or 7 and walk them around over here, and you're harassing the wood. And sure, you can prevent the wood, but they're going to peel units back. And I guess it kind of depends what elo you're at. If you're in the lower elo, you're going to get some villager kills, and you're going to secure the win. But the higher you go, these villagers at 14 health, 10 health, 3 health, whatever. This low health villagers, they're just going to get pulled back under the TC, and they're just going to rotate to the next wood line. And then if you don't have enough army here to press it off here, you're going to have to deal with that. You're never going to deny the 300 starting straggler trees. So they're going to get some sort of production building and units out. And then it becomes an issue of being able to fight these villagers on either wood line without losing so much units that you lose your snowball potential. Because if he cranks out a few archers or a couple of horsemen and catches you with like 4 longbows but no spearmen, and he makes horsemen, now he's going to clean up those longbows and he's going to rehabilitate a wood line, and then you're going to kind of really fall back because a lot of these other civs will have some sort of eco bonus but behind their civ that's really going to kind of outpace your 1TC eco if you're not getting enough damage in. So it's a really good, interesting strat because it's very aggressive, but at the same time, it is the immobility of this army makes it kind of difficult to raid and really be adequately mobile to deny resources like you need to with this build. So it's an interesting kind of a build. I do like it. I think it's got some potential against 2TC and fast castle builds, but I definitely haven't fully refined the playstyle and like the feel of how it needs to be done. So yeah, take it for what it is in that regards. But yeah, I hope you guys like it. If you guys try it out, let me know how it goes. And yeah, tomorrow the new patch is releasing, and we're gonna start looking into updating our Mongol builds, and then the following patch after that, Mongols are gonna get a brand new unit, which is gonna be really cool to be able to see what that is. So yeah, I'm also back from Peru and back in the States, so I'm going to be uploading again more regularly. And yeah, thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.